It's been a while since I've hopped on a live broadcast, but it's been on my mind lately. It seems like all that we're seeing lately in terms of, I don't know, just diet trends and everything like that, it's all coming back to like this ancestral lifestyle, right? We see Liver King, we see all these people that are promoting this kind of thing. Even Paul Saladino is like, now eating a bunch of fruit and honey and stuff like that. It's so wild. So it really got me thinking with this whole reversion back to an ancestral lifestyle that people are talking about, we're starting to sound a lot like paleo again. And as someone that's, I guess, on the forefront of what people are talking about in the world of diet nutrition, at least online, it's pretty interesting, right? It's almost as though we're reverting back to paleo. So the purpose of this live broadcast is really just have an interesting discussion, right? I don't have a dog in the fight one way or the other, right? I just kind of do what works for me and I share that. But is ancestral dieting the same thing as paleo? When we look at like what Mark Sisson had to say years and years ago with paleo, we're really preaching a lot of the same stuff now, except maybe a little bit more emphasis on organ meats and things like that. So it's pretty interesting, and I'm already seeing people popping in saying they feel the same way, right? So it's almost like we're at Paleo 2.0. Anyway, this is going to be fun. I just wanted to do a live broadcast. I think it's cool to hop on here, interact every now and then. So anyone that has questions, I can't guarantee I'll get to your question. Can't guarantee I'll be able to even answer a lot of questions, but it helps to be able to interact. Um, so as you hear me talk, if you have ideas or just good conversation that you want to put into the comment section, just go ahead and do it in the live stream, and I'll see if I can do that. So, surrounding the world of paleo, has anyone here done paleo before or familiar with it? Because I'll kind of give a recap on it. I'm not suggesting anyone goes out and does paleo. What I'm suggesting is that we're kind of reverting back to this. I've seen numerous people in the lower carb community starting to come out and say, hey, I'm going to eat more fruit, or I'm not going to do keto anymore and I'm going to do this. And it actually opens up the great discussion of like who should be doing keto, who shouldn't be doing keto, who should be fasting, who shouldn't be fasting. Like, can we look at this whole equation so that we stop having this myopic view on things, right? I do think to a certain degree from a content perspective that people in the ketogenic low carb world might have been getting a little tired of talking about the same sort of things coming out. If they're not really waist deep in the research and finding out the new things that are coming out, they're really preaching the same thing over and over again. So I can see how, hey, you know what, I might need to try some different things. So we're seeing guys like Paul Saladino that were so strict carnivore now going to consuming fruit and things like that. Like, what does everyone think of that? Is it a problem? Is it a good thing? I'm inclined to think it's a good thing that people are opening their eyes a little bit more, because one thing, like I mentioned in that one video that keto did for me, is it put me in a box where it kept me really strict with what I needed to lose weight. Now, as I'm more active than I was 10 years ago, and I have a little bit more, I'm a lot leaner, I think I can afford to have some fruit, right? So I try to keep it within like the confines of that. Shenna says, can I explain what paleo really is? Yeah, paleo is the same as ancestral. That's what's kind of funny. Like Liver King talks about the ancestral diet. Paleo is Paleolithic, right? So there's no grains, there's technically no dairy, but I think that like raw dairy would probably be okay nowadays if you looked at paleo. Paleo is, fair bit of fruits, moderate amount of carbohydrates, largely protein based. If you think Paleolithic, what would a caveman have eaten? That's really what it's coming down to. What's very interesting, and what I wanted to make part of this discussion, is some of you may have seen the video that I did with Dr. Tommy Wood a couple of weeks ago. We talked about autophagy, and I try to bring some interesting points and interesting angles to raise discussion in my brain so that I can create good content looking at all different angles. He mentioned to me offline that, it's kind of estimated that the active individual, like an athlete in today's world, is likely to be 5 to 6 times more active than our ancestors were. So active population now is more active than our ancestors were as far as like Paleolithic times, right? Which is hard to believe because we largely feel like we live a sedentary life, but we're talking about the most active people in our current lifestyle, right? The most active people in our current lifestyle or our current time move a lot. and they can handle the carbohydrates that maybe Paleolithic times could not, right? Not saying that processed starches and processed carbohydrates are good, but what I am saying is that an athlete today moves more than the average person a few hundred years ago. So that is, in a sense, an unnatural setting, right? Where they could probably withstand to have more honey, more fruit, more things like that. Um, some interesting things coming up. Let's see. Do I pluck my eyebrows? No, I just get them trimmed when I get a haircut. Hey, by the way, if you guys don't mind, can you hit that thumbs up button? I don't know where it is. It depends on what device you're on, but the thumbs up button just helps this live broadcast get out to the subscriber base. So if people are watching, they can hop on. So just smash that thumbs up button. That's all I ask for. There's no sponsorship, nothing in this video, no who dad weird stuff. It's just me talking, hanging out. So any thumbs up or just, and also after this video, leave a comment. So that's not just live feed, but it actually goes in the video itself and helps rank the video a little bit more. Yeah, so okay, coming back kind of to the paleo versus ancestral living thing. I noticed today, even on Instagram, I noticed that Liver King mentions that he actually consumes some olive oil, right? Which goes against the grain of a lot of the ancestral stuff, right? Like some people would say olive oil is not a naturally ancestral food, but it would have been included in paleo, technically speaking. So ancestral is supposed to be like largely animal based. I don't think that it needs to be that way. I think that ancestral needs to be more like paleo, right? I think that it's fair to assume that if we came across a berry bush and we were hunting and gathering, and we would probably scarf those berries. We probably didn't have a means to preserve them for the most part. So we would probably devour as much of them as we can. That's probably not the best thing for fatty liver. That's probably not the best thing for a lot of things that we know now based upon overconsumption at one given time. But if you're also going to be having a period of time in which you're not eating those fruits for, a long time, then yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, some questions that are coming up. Uh, hang on, guys. Opinion about, sorry. There's a lot. I like the complex fibers that are considered paleo, sweet potatoes and other tubers, minimal fruit in season. I think understanding the biochemistry that you constantly review. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so you bring up like with this whole like resurfacing of paleo and everything there. Paleo is very big on eating fruits that are in season. And when I had Mike Mutzel on the channel, we were talking about this, like fruits that are in season. Now, the question that I have to raise with this is, what is season anymore, right? Like it makes sense. Like I want to eat tubers during this time. I want to eat fruits during this time because they're in season. But what about our lives are really seasonal anymore? We have constant blue light. We're indoors with air conditioning. We train inside in gyms. Like it's just, we are not living a real, thorough ancestral life. So we cannot take those exact things and apply them to today. And that's really what I do try to do with my channel is I try to apply what we know about the human body from, say, an ancestral time, what we do know, and apply it with, okay, what advances do we have with modern life? Okay, we also are sitting in cars, driving from location to location. We also are driving to able to travel to different places where different fruits are in season at different times, right? So it's a very interesting dynamic to think about how this works. What would be true paleo really needs to be adopted, or I should say adapted, not adopted, but adapted to our modern lifestyle, right? So it's a great thing to bring up. Paleo is very big on having the fibers, the sweet potatoes, things like that. Some seeds, things like that, maybe, I mean, it depends, right? It depends on who you ask about paleo. But if you look at like an ancestral way of living, again, I keep referencing Liver King because he's probably like the forefront of what people would consider the ancestral lifestyle right now. He still consumes like seed butters and nut butters to a certain point, which in a lot of people's eyes would be high omega-6, not good fats to consume. But I think, again, it comes back to like a very modest amount. How hard is it to harvest those, and how much would you ultimately consume if you did? And that's a fair and moderate amount. I probably consume like 1 to 2 ounces, maybe 3 ounces of nuts per day now. I really have reduced my nut intake, right? So it's just an important thing to know. Let's see. Keith says paleo, meat, fish, but meat should be wild caught or fed with what's closest to nature. fish should be wild caught in the best parts of our seas. I totally agree, Keys. That's a good way to put it. And if I had it my way with paleo, it would be a lot more seafood. And again, I know guys like Paul Saladino don't like the seafood right now because, yeah, I mean, there probably are a lot of pollutants and you probably get a lot of benefit talking about different cuts of meat that he's talking about. But I do like the lean protein that comes from fish. I like being able to maintain control of that. Let's see. Okay, Gina Kidwell says, should you take your personal microbiome into consideration? I did a test and it was good for things. The thing with testing your microbiome, I think we're going to kind of go off into some tangents with some questions. The thing with testing your microbiome, I have concerns with that because the microbiome is always shifting. Like, there's evidence that shows that just sleeping well for a few nights can change your microbiome, right? And vice versa with poor sleep can change your microbiome. So by getting a quick snapshot in time with your microbiome, it really could be leading you astray, right? Like, what if you had a poor 2 weeks of sleep prior to testing your microbiome? It's changing constantly. So I don't know if that's the best thing to like base your diet upon. You should try to base your microbiome upon your diet. Okay. So what I mean by that is control what you eat. So you're having more control of your microbiome, not letting your microbiome control you, if that makes sense. Jane Blanco says, hello, Thomas. I love all your videos. How can I increase my metabolism? It's a good question because I did a video on this today. Increasing your metabolism is sort of a little bit of a flawed statement, right? Our metabolisms slow down in certain ways, like if we deprive ourselves of calories or if we are inactive or if we don't have a lot of muscle mass, but it doesn't just like flip a switch and magically turn down one day. Okay. So generally what is driving a slow metabolism is either massively reducing calories or losing muscle, right? And not having training stimulus, losing muscle and therefore not being able to train harder. So some of the best things that you can do, honestly, as much as you possibly can, do things that are going to increase mitochondrial density. Okay, mitochondrial density is going to be what the concentration of mitochondria, energy powerhouses you have in your cell. So on one hand, I would say fasting is going to help that. But one of the last things you want to do when you already have a slow metabolism is fast. So what I typically recommend sounds crazy, but train as much as you can and eat as much as you can. That's like the only way that your metabolism has no choice but to rev up, if that makes sense. You're increasing turnover. You're increasing what is called G flux or energy flux. So Tommy Wood actually put it in a perfect way. He's like, you should eat as much as you can until you notice that you start to gain weight and then back it off. But you should modulate your activity according to such. You see, we're led to believe that we need to just eat small amounts if we want to live for a long period of time. The gray area or the fine print in that is it's more about being in a subtle deficit versus eating a small amount. So there's a lot of evidence that suggests that if you eat more, but also move more, you're killing two birds with one stone. You're getting the best of the best, right? You're eating more, but you're still training more. So that's the best solution for a slowed metabolism. It's just not the answer. Well, it's half the answer people want to hear. Half the answer is, yes, I do want to eat more. That's great. I love hearing that I get to eat more. The half that people don't want to hear is, yeah, that comes with a price. You have to move more. But that's the best way because you're sort of artificially, for lack of a better term, stoking your metabolism, right? You're having to. You're increasing your activity, which is increasing your resting metabolic rate, and it's increasing your non-exercise activity thermogenesis and all these things. And then you're also increasing your intake to match that. So everything's leveled up. Now, I don't have like a magic answer to fix metabolism. That's really just it. And that's going to allow you to increase the amount of food that you can consume, right? It doesn't mean you say, I'm going to go eat 1,000,000 calories and sit on the couch. It means I'm going to increase my calories by a couple hundred, but I'm also going to increase my activity by a couple hundred to match it, right? Let's see. There's other good questions. How many days do you do a prolonged fast for and how many days are recommended? I think after 72 hours, the benefits start to kind of go away a little bit. I think that, the magic sauce seems to be between 48 and 72 hours for people that are doing prolonged fasting. Guayo says, my avocado mango tree doesn't harvest all year, so I eat according to my tree season. You know what? That's a fair way to be, right? It's like if you're eating with what you have in your backyard, then that just makes sense. What do I think about Whole30? I think it's fine. I think eating based upon like an inflammatory spectrum is kind of odd because food in general is going to cause inflammation. It's just naturally what it does. And certain foods are going to inflame us more. Certain foods are going to inflame you more than they're going to inflame me. And that's just a natural process of eating food, right? It is an inflammatory process in and of itself. Uh, my concern, okay, is I try to look at everything from a hormetic stressor standpoint. I'm a big fan of what's called the anti-fragile concept, right? Now, not everyone agrees with me on that, but the anti-fragile concept suggests that if you constantly baby yourself by eliminating foods that cause a little bit of discomfort or a little bit of stress, and I'm not talking about processed crap. I'm talking about, maybe you have a little issue with seeds. Maybe you have a little issue with nuts. That's not an allergen, but just an intolerance. If you constantly baby yourself and keep those things out of your system, you're never developing an ability to deal with them. Okay. It's kind of the same method. Like if you look at plants, for instance, there's people that make the argument that plants are toxic, right? And I'm just playing devil's advocate here. There's people that make the argument that plants are toxic. You should not eat plants because they have oxalates and phytates and these things that are bad and cause inflammation. Then, of course, you have the other side of the equation that says they're anti-inflammatory, they're beneficial, they're this, they're that. Couldn't you plausibly make the argument that the stress from consuming plants is arguably making you stronger, right? Now, this is purely hypothetical. I'm saying this because there's a reason for everything and there's an acknowledgement for just about everything. So it's kind of funny when you look at it, right? It's like, okay, are plants bad? It depends who you ask. Are plants good? It depends who you ask. Are plants a hormetic stressor? So hopefully you see what I'm going at with this. I want to make sure I jump into other people's questions, okay? But I also want to be able to talk about the other half of this video, which I titled, right? The first half, if you're just jumping on, I talked about how paleo is kind of making a comeback with just a different word, right? I think paleo 2.0 is about to come, mark my words, right? I think it may not be called paleo, but we're headed there. People aren't as interested in keto. They're interested in following the baseline whole food dynamics of keto, but sprinkling in controlled natural sources of carbohydrates, right? We're seeing this. You're seeing it with me. You're seeing it with Mike Mutzel. You're seeing it with Tommy Wood. You're seeing it with Paul Saladino. It's happening, okay? And that's the evolution of science and evolution of what we're learning. But the other side that I put on this title was who should not be fasting more than a few days per week? There are people that should not fast. That's plain and simple. But there's people that really shouldn't fast more than a few days per week. So we'll kind of use this time to talk about that. Now, if you did just hop on this broadcast again, if you don't mind, hit that thumbs up button. That just helps this video out, helps it get some momentum so that people can watch it later on. We've got about 600 people on it right now. I'd love to get that number up if people hit that thumbs up button. So wherever you can find it, if you're on mobile, it's down below, I think. Anyhow, and after this video, leave a comment too. There's no sponsor on this video. This is purely just interaction. Okay. So, former Vice President Joe Biden's son, let's see. Okay, that's just your title. Love your videos. A little too deep in the weeds with the science sometimes, but still love them. It's always a balance, right? If I don't go deep, then people say there's no science. If I go too deep, then people say the videos are too long. So I try to just balance them out with short and long videos, but it is what it is. Anyhow, for the fasting piece of the equation, this is a very important thing. Some people should not fast more than a few days per week. Okay. The reason I say that is because one category of those people are people that are already lean. Okay. If you're already lean and you don't have much body fat on you already, you need to be able to have an objective line in the sand that says it's time to not fast anymore, because it very quickly becomes A, an addiction, but B, if you are already lean, what are you burning? Like you can only go through so much autophagy, right? You're not just like becoming Superman and becoming so ridiculously efficient, right? That's not how it works. Autophagy occurs and that is great. But if you are already lean, you may want to limit your fasting to 3 days per week. And the reason I say that is because what is providing you with repair nutrients? What is providing you with repair stimulus and that mTOR that you need and the occasional insulin spike that you need for recovery, right? So for me, being lean and already at my goal weight, it doesn't make sense for me to fast more than 2 or 3 days per week. So that's about what I do. If I were to start fasting more, you guys notice it. It's funny because as soon as I start increasing my fasting, you guys will notice it. You'll be like, Thomas, you look sunken in. Your face looks sunken in. Unfortunately, in this case, well, I guess fortunately, because I used to be fat, so it's kind of nice now. Like, yeah, there's not much to go. So it goes out of my face, it goes anywhere. So people have noticed, oh, Thomas, you look like fuller in the face now. You look like that's because I've gotten some control over when I fast. And I've really drawn objective lines in the sand where it's like if I get below a certain body fat, I reduce my fasting. If I get if I'm fasting too much, then maybe I'll eat a little bit before workouts, right? I kind of modulate it that way. So that's a very, very, very important thing. Another person that should not be fasting more than 3 times per week. Now, this is not in general. This is 3 times per week, right? Do not exceed 3 times per week, is someone that is dealing with hormonal issues. Okay. mTOR is required for a lot of different hormone functions. So this means that if you are dealing with low testosterone or a poor cortisol to testosterone ratio, things like that, and this is very important, you're not morbidly obese or very overweight, then you shouldn't be fasting as much. Now, the caveat with being overweight is this. If you're very, very overweight, like more than 50 pounds overweight, then your low testosterone could very much be a result of being obese or being overweight. In which case, I would make the argument that reducing the body fat would probably be a bigger lever to pull for your testosterone than the mTOR and insulin catalyst that you need otherwise. Okay. So if you are, let's just say as an example, someone that's maybe 20 pounds overweight, you're not crazy overweight, you're just mildly overweight and you want to keep fasting to lose weight, that's great. But you should probably only do it 3 days per week because if your testosterone levels are low and you're trying to restore those, the more that you fast beyond what you should be doing, the more those levels will decrease. Again, unless you are very overweight, in which the weight loss would be hugely advantageous for your testosterone levels. Let's see if any questions coming up. It's a good question. Deepaka Lahoti says, what is my definition of fasting as you refer to it? I am referring to, so for me, I don't even really consider 16-8 that much fasting. Okay. I still think that I kind of consider the gold standard 18 hours. That's kind of where I stand. I think 16 hours, a lot of people do that without even knowing it, right? So I think 18 hours is sort of the magic secret sauce number. I think 18 to 20 hours. So when I say fasting 3 days per week, I mean doing like an 18-hour fast 3 days a week. I feel like that is largely beneficial for most people. Let's see. Danube says, Thomas, love your balanced approach. I don't fast anymore and I'm healthier than ever. And I eat tons of sugar now, thanks to what I learned from, and that's just the thing. You do have to figure out what works for you. And you probably saw my video talking about like the whole triage analogy, right? Like a level 1 trauma center, when you're totally metabolically deranged and you need a lot of keto and a lot of fasting to get you out of that level 1 trauma center, right? You got to get but then you inch your way out of that. And what I try to do is create content for all people that are in that level 1 trauma center right now that need to do keto to get out of that. Then also for people that are maybe coming out of that or starting to get healthier. They lost 100 pounds and now their metabolism is healthy. And guess what? They can handle carbohydrates because they are now able to be active. I'll use my father-in-law as a great example, right? My father-in-law went on keto, lost like 75 pounds last year. It couch a lot. Even when he was at work, he was just sitting down. Keto worked phenomenally for him because carbs need to be burned. They should be burned, right? They're fuel. They're an immediate fuel source. It would make no sense for him to have carbohydrates. He lost or excess carbohydrates, I should say. But then 75 pounds later, he's a different person. Now he's out taking his dog to the beach. He's out walking. He's out doing these things. He's going on 2 to 3 walks a day with his dog, Ruby. And it's great, right? So now he's like, oh, I'm in a spot where maybe it's okay that I have some healthy carbohydrates. So he'll have some fruit. Maybe he'll have some yogurt. He doesn't have sugar, but the point is here, he's active now. And now he's at a spot where he can utilize that. You need to modulate carbohydrate intake based upon your activity. It's not rocket science. It really is that simple. The problem is so many people have become metabolically damaged for decades that the only way they can get themselves out of that is to completely go ketogenic or go really aggressive with the fasting. So bear in mind that I'm creating content for over 3 million people when I do these videos, right? And I have a wide spectrum of people that are in that metabolic triage level 1 trauma center. And then I have people that have been following me for 2 or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years that lost 100, 200, some even 300, 400 pounds. And they're different people now. Okay. So it's very cool just to like see that and all the different people there that have gone through that. Junk Food Junkie says, just curious, will eating black beans and wild rice help lower my blood sugar level? Generally, if you combine black beans with rice, that would modulate your glucose, And an important thing to note, I talked about this with Paul Saladino, is that blood sugar is not the end of the world. Okay. Blood sugar is only a problem if it spikes and does not come back down. Okay. If your blood sugar spikes and it goes high, but it comes down, your body's doing what it's supposed to do. It does not mean that it gives you a license to spike your glucose. I don't think you should just go out and try to spike your glucose unless you have a very specific reason. But the point is that if your glucose comes back down, you shouldn't be overly concerned, right? Unless you are someone that is dealing with insulin resistance, right? Then it matters. Because if you are an insulin resistant person and you spike your glucose, it's going to go up and it's going to stay up. And that is a problem, my friends. So with that, we need to control that much more. And that's why I gear a lot of content towards eat this with this or drink this with this to try to control your glucose, because a lion's share of people watching my content need to control this. They can't afford to have these big spikes. But yes, if you are monitoring your glucose and you see, oh, I spike and I come back down, your body's doing what it's supposed to do. Let's see. In modulating fasting, are you tethering that to a body fat percentage, physical appearance, that gaunt look, or something else? I guess I'm asking is, what is too lean that you use here? Yeah, I think you need to have something objective, right? Like a body fat percentage is good to look at. So, if you're sub 10%, I think intermittent fasting should be something that is done intermittently, right? It should be done like a few days per week. And again, you could make the argument that as long as your calories are high enough on your non-fasting days, you're fine. But I find that it's usually a small few that really have it dialed in that much, right? A lot of people say, I like fasting, so they do it every day. And that can pose a problem for sleep. We should always be prioritizing sleep and recovery, and everything else will kind of fall into place. So Josh says, I appreciate your approach and help along the way. About 18 months ago, I was 300 plus pounds and in need of that serious intervention. Fasting and low carb is amazing. I'm now at 220, different program. Exactly. So fasting and keto is what you needed to kind of get that whole process like corrected, right? Which kind of leads me again to the next person that should not be fasting more than 3 days per week. And that's exactly what I just alluded to. The person that has trouble sleeping. Okay. I think that fasting works for a lot of people. The reason it doesn't work for some people is because their head is not in the game and they are convincing themselves it doesn't work and they don't really want to do it. So they're convincing themselves not to. But people that have literal sleep issues need to back off the fasting. Fasting will always be there. And I'll tell you this, fasting works great for a damaged metabolism. It works even better for a good metabolism that is firing properly. So let that sink in. Fasting is good for a broken metabolism, but works even better for a healthy metabolism. So do what you can do to restore your metabolism, and that means sleep. So if you need to back off the fasting to allow yourself to sleep a little bit, do that and restore healthy sleep patterns, and then throw fasting back in once that has been restored. Hey, can everyone remember to hit that thumbs up button? Again, that just helps this video out. So that like button, that thumbs up button. Awesome. Thanks. Already seen that popping in. Let's see. Can you do high protein, low fat on keto, says Sonia. Yes, absolutely. That is one of, I was speaking at the CrossFit Games in early August. So I decided in July, I was like, okay, I was at about 8% body fat. I wanted to get down to about 5 in a month. And I was like, okay, well, I know I can do this pretty quick. That's exactly what I did. I did high protein, low fat keto. And again, I sound like a broken record, but I have to say it to so many different people. You should be chasing results, not ketones. High fat on keto isn't the only way to do keto. Okay. High fat, low protein. You can do high protein. Gluconeogenesis, which is where your body converts protein into glucose, is not supply driven, it's demand driven, right? So what that means is that you're only going to convert protein into glucose if there is a demand for glucose. Okay. So just by eating more protein doesn't automatically create more glucose. That's not how it works. So if you eat more protein, it's going to go towards muscle protein synthesis. It's going to go towards a positive nitrogen balance. It's all a good thing no matter what. Okay. Only if your body starts demanding glucose is your body going to take that protein and convert it. And that doesn't matter whether you're consuming 200 grams, 300 grams, or 50 grams. Okay. So the point is, prioritize the protein. I think the tables have turned. It's less about prioritizing the fat and prioritizing the protein now. Eric, wow, holy cow, man. It says, was 426 pounds, now 309 pounds with a goal of 265. Heck yeah, Eric, that's awesome. And you're someone, if fasting is working for you, you keep rocking it, right? Exactly. Let's see. Maystar says, I started intermittent fasting, watching your videos, and started off so well, but stopped seeing results pretty quickly. This is motivating me to try again. And that's exactly the thing, right? Is like, just like anything, fasting is not magic. It will work. Okay. But you have to have that objective line in the sand. Eventually, it's going to stop and you need to do something different. So preserve it and make it so that maybe you're fasting a few days per week versus every day, right? It's just so difficult. And I totally empathize because as someone that was overweight before, I just get it, right? You find something that works. It's easier to just want to do that every day. I don't want to have to worry about 3 days a week of fasting and 4 days a week of something else. Well, fasting needs to just be that shock to the system. Bubbly drinks will not break a fast. You are good to go there. Jake says, keto is great for me, but I got xanthotomas under my eyes as a result. Any thoughts on what to do here? Could prolonged fast. Yeah, it's generally speaking, there's a number of different things, like sort of the gaunt, some circles under your eyes, things like that. I mean, more often than not, believe it or not, that's just your facial structure. And when you get lean, that gets highlighted more. Like if I get super lean, I get circles under my eyes because my cheekbones are high. And it's just the way it looks. And like if the light is casting down on me, it's just exacerbates it. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. A lot of times, like people have issues with dairy. If you're having an issue with dairy, that might be the issue. I don't know why. If you can literally Google like dairy circles, dairy eye circles. For some reason, I don't know what it is. If it's a reaction, a histamine response to the caseins or something. But let's see. Other good questions. I'm trying equal protein to fat keto instead of high fat keto, and I feel better. I was now 233, now 155. I need to stop fasting and only skipping breakfast, doing 2 meals a day. Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's easy to get addicted to it, right? No, I would just draw that objective line and I'm going to do 3 days a week of fasting and do slightly longer fasts and get back to enjoying breakfasts on those off days, because breakfast is a very important meal as far as hormones and as far as gut incretins and all these things are concerned. Also, you don't always have to train fasted. Try working out fasted, then occasionally work out non-fasted. It's all about keeping your body efficient and good at doing things, not becoming a one-trick pony. Let's see. How do I feel? Let's see. Sorry, so many questions. So let's see. So why does my body need glucose? How often? Your body always needs glucose. Okay. That's just the way that it goes. It's just, there's certain cells like red blood cells, things like that need glucose. Like they have to run on glucose. So your body's always going to demand that. So when you're fasting, you're going to generate demand. Is grass-fed raw milk totally off limits during keto? Should it be consumed only post-workout? It's not totally off limits. The dose makes the poison there, right? I would just go for maybe like the heavy cream or half and half. It's lower carb in that case. Let's see. Can I fast while working construction? Yes. I don't see that being a problem. Man, there's so many good questions. Joshua, good point. Says, once you listen to your body, you don't have to listen to anyone. That's very true. That's exactly right. You just listen to what your body is telling you. But I am a firm believer that with education comes adherence, right? You have to learn what's happening in your body if you are the kind of person that is motivated to perform that way. So it's like, if you know what is spiking your glucose, if you know what is causing X effect in your body, sometimes that's what it takes. And that's exactly what it took for me. Like I needed to get motivated. Anyhow, with that, guys, I got to hop off. Hope that I had a chance to answer some good questions. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button to just helps this video rank. And after I close out this video, leave a regular comment, not just in the live chat, but in the regular comment section. That's going to help this content continue to flourish and get people over to this video more. Live broadcasts are always a crapshoot because, even Dr. Berg's channel with 8.5 million subscribers, it's like when he does a live, he's going to have 1,000 people on there. It's just, the algorithms don't exactly work in our favor for live streams anymore, but I do enjoy doing them. So if you want to see me do more live streams, comment more live streams. And lastly, before I hop off, if you guys can just comment where you're watching from, I'm going to give a big shout out to as many people as I can see that comment where they're watching from. So just hit me in that live chat or in that comment section, say where you're watching from. And that is how we will close this one off. We've got Sonia in Florida. Thank you, Sonia. We've got Johnny B in Toronto. We've got Muhammad in the UK. We've got Gina in Oregon. We've got, here we go. Now they're all flowing in. Okay. We've got Nathan in Finland. We've got Tim in Texas. We've got Darian in South Carolina. We've got, oh man, it's too fast. Michael Roten in Texas. We've got LVC in California. We've got Ivan in Spain. We've got Jeff in Longwood, Florida. We've got Southwest Michigan from Sue. We've got Tina. It's too fast. Okay. Vincent in Chicago. We've got Sarah in Mexico. We've got Aaron in Manchester, UK. We've got Tim in Connecticut. Julio in Corona, California. We've got, this is awesome. Okay, it's going too fast. I'm going to get sick if I do that. You guys are all awesome. We've got Dead Possum in New Zealand. We've got Carnivore Astrocast in Dubai. And lastly, we've got Jorian Doom in the Netherlands. All right, you guys have an awesome day. If you didn't get a chance to watch this full broadcast, it'll be on repeat. As soon as I close this out, it'll become a replay. All right, you guys, I will see you with a new video tomorrow.